He was the supreme commander who led the free world to victory, the soldier who became a president, and the man whose calm smile hid the weight of history. Dwight D. Eisenhower. Ike was more than a general or a politician. He was a living symbol of stability in a century defined by chaos. From the beaches of Normandy to the Oval Office, he shaped the course of nations. Yet behind the medals, behind the command and diplomacies, stood a private world defined not by conquest, but by love loss and legacy. Eisenhower's public life was etched into the global stage, but his private story unfolded in the quiet corners of home, a story carried through two sons, Doud Dwight Eisenhower and John Sheldon Doud Eisenhower. One would be the light that vanished too soon, the heartbreak that shadowed his father's soul forever. The other would become the heir to his discipline and intellect, the historian who ensured that the name Eisenhower would endure beyond politics and war. Tonight we move beyond the general's famous grin and the war hero's salute into the story of Dwight D. Eisenhower, the father. The man who learned that even victory cannot shield the heart from loss, and that legacy, like leadership, is born in both triumph and grief. Number 2. Doud Dwight Eisenhower, Icky Dowd. Dwight Eisenhower, affectionately called Icky by his parents, was born on September 24, 1917, in San Antonio, Texas, during a fleeting chapter of peace in Dwight Eisenhower's young military career. He was the first child of Dwight and Mamie Eisenhower, and from the moment he entered the world, he became the sun around which the couple's lives revolved. For the young officer who would one day command millions, fatherhood was his first true command. And Dowd, bright-eyed and full of laughter, was the joy that steadied him amid the uncertainties of military life. The Eisenhowers were constantly on the move, transferred from one base to another as Dwight's career advanced. Yet no matter where they went, Dowd was the constant center of their small world, a child who filled their quarters with the sound of laughter and toy soldiers clattering across wooden floors. Eisenhower, known for his composure under pressure, melted completely around his son. He taught Dowd to ride a tricycle before dawn on parade grounds, showed him how to salute, and often returned from long hours of duty just to tuck him into bed. Mamie, elegant and devoted, doted on her only child, and together the young family radiated warmth in the austere world of the military. Friends remembered them as inseparable, and even the stoic Eisenhower once wrote, "That boy, he has me wrapped completely around his finger." But in the winter of 1920, fate struck with merciless precision. While the family was stationed in Camp Meade, Maryland, 3-year-old Dowd contracted scarlet fever, a common illness at the time, but one that could turn fatal in days before the advent of antibiotics. The Army doctor fought to save him. Dwight and Mamie never left his bedside. The great commander-to-be, who would one day plan D-Day with flawless precision, could do nothing but hold his son's hand as the fever consumed him. On January 2, 1921, just 9 days after Christmas, Dowd died in his father's arms. He was only 3 years old. The Eisenhowers were shattered. Dwight the soldier faced a grief he could neither fight nor command. In later years, he rarely spoke of Dowd's death, but those who knew him said it left a permanent scar. He poured himself into work, pushing his emotions deep beneath the surface. Yet every New Year's Day, his eyes would cloud with a pain he never could disguise. Mamie, meanwhile, withdrew into silence, her spirit dimmed by loss. Their marriage would endure, but the wound never fully healed. Eisenhower later wrote that Dowd's death changed me from a careless young officer to a man with an understanding of the burden life can bring. That understanding would shape the leader he became, the patience, the calm under fire, the empathy for those who suffered. When he sent young soldiers into battle decades later, he carried within him the knowledge of what it meant to lose something irreplaceable. Today, Dowd's small white gravestone lies in the serene grounds of the Eisenhower Presidential Library in Abilene, Kansas. Visitors often find it before they reach the general's imposing tomb, a simple stone for a small boy who taught one of history's greatest commanders the meaning of vulnerability. Number 1. John Sheldon Doud. Eisenhower, John Sheldon Doud. Eisenhower was born on August 3, 1922, in Denver, Colorado, a second chance at fatherhood for Dwight and Mamie, though his arrival came shadowed by the memory of the brother who had died before him. In private letters, Dwight wrote that he felt almost fearful when holding John for the first time, as if life might again slip through his fingers. But this time fate would allow the general a chance to build what tragedy had once taken away, a bond that would endure through war politics and the heavy weight of history. From childhood, John was raised in a household defined by discipline, education, and quiet affection. The Eisenhowers were not demonstrative, but their love was steady, shaped by loss and strengthened by duty. As his father's military career carried the family across the country from the Panama Canal Zone to Fort Sam Houston, from Washington to the Philippines, John adapted with calm maturity. His teachers described him as reserved, but bright, with his father's methodical mind and his mother's poise. When the Second World War broke out, John was 21, old enough to serve, but young enough to still be seen as the general's boy. He enrolled at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, the same institution where his father had graduated 4 decades earlier. In the spring of 1944, as his father prepared for D-Day in Europe, John graduated and received his commission as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army. Father and son now wore the same uniform, though their roles could not have been more different. One commanded the Allied armies that would liberate a continent, the other served humbly in the infantry, far from the cameras and acclaim. After the war, John pursued a career that combined both discipline and intellect. He served in the Korean War and eventually rose to the rank of brigadier general. But his true calling lay in history. He possessed a quiet fascination with the complexities of leadership and the moral burdens of command lessons he had absorbed not only from the battlefield, but from a lifetime spent watching his father balance power with principle. When Dwight D. Eisenhower became the 34th President of the United States in 1953, John entered a new kind of service, that of a soldier's scholar, navigating the corridors of politics. He served as a staff assistant, an informal advisor, often acting as a bridge between the president and the military establishment. Yet despite his proximity to power, John remained remarkably grounded. Colleagues described him as modest and reflective, the son who understood both the greatness and loneliness of leadership. After his father's presidency, John retired from active military service and devoted himself fully to writing. His books, including The Bitter Woods, 1951, a definitive study of the Battle of the Bulge, and Strictly Personal, 1974, a memoir of his years near his father, earned him respect as a serious historian. His works portrayed war not as spectacle, but as a human struggle written with the clarity of a soldier and the empathy of a son who had witnessed the cost of command. John's later years were marked by quiet dignity. He served as U.S. ambassador to Belgium under President Nixon, and his writings continued to bridge the worlds of military history and moral reflection. When he died in 2013 at the age of 91, he was buried at the Eisenhower Presidential Library in Abilene, beside his parents and the little brother he had never met. John Eisenhower's life was not one of grand gestures, but of continuity. He was the living thread that tied together the human and historical sides of his father's legacy. The soldier who carried discipline, the historian who carried memory, and the son who carried peace. The legacy of Dwight D. Eisenhower and his 2 sons is a story of triumph, built on tenderness of victory, shadowed by loss. It reminds us that even history's strongest men carry silent battles within their hearts, and that legacy is not measured only by what we achieve, but by what we endure and pass on. Doud Dwight Eisenhower. The firstborn lived only 3 short years, but his memory would mark his father forever. The boy's death transformed Dwight from a young officer into a man of depth and empathy, a leader who understood the cost of sacrifice in a way no battlefield could ever teach. The grief never left him. In every decision that followed, from leading soldiers through the blood of Normandy to consoling the families of the fallen as president, he carried the quiet memory of a child lost to time. John Sheldon Doud Eisenhower, the second son, became the bridge between private sorrow and public legacy. He embodied his father's discipline without his sternness, his intellect without his weight of command. Through his military service, his writings, and his diplomacy, John ensured that the Eisenhower name would endure not only in monuments and museums, but in words, reflection, and understanding. Where Dwight had shaped the world through action, John shaped its memory through thought. Together, the 3 Eisenhowers, father and sons, form a portrait of the 20th century itself, Strength forged by struggle wisdom, born from pain and endurance, grounded in faith. The general who once commanded millions in war would one day rest beside the little boy who taught him the meaning of love, and the grown son who gave that love a lasting voice. Today, visitors who walk the grounds of the Eisenhower Presidential Library in Abilene, Kansas, find 3 graves in a simple line: Dwight, Mamie, and between them, little Dowd. Nearby lies John, the final witness to their story. There are no grand statues or boastful epitaphs, only the quiet certainty of a family bound by duty and devotion. In the end, Dwight D. Eisenhower's greatest victory was not won on the beaches of Normandy or in the halls of the White House. It was won in the heart of a man who learned through love and loss that courage is not only the power to lead nations, but the strength to keep living after the guns have gone silent.